Let's dive into a profound topic that holds a powerful truth, one that many people overlook but everyone should understand. This truth is about how we create our own reality, transform ourselves, and shape our future. Many of us believe that change happens to us from the outside in. We think that we need external things to change before we can feel differently or act differently. For example, we might wait for a new job, a new relationship, or more money to feel happy or successful. We believe that once these external circumstances change, then we can start feeling good or making positive changes in our lives. Let's start by understanding the concept of change at a fundamental level. When we talk about transformation, we're referring to a process that goes deeper than just our thoughts. It's neurological, biological, chemical, hormonal, and even genetic. The old self, with its old patterns and limitations, must essentially die so the new self can emerge. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a biological reality. When you begin to change, you are literally rewiring your brain and altering your body chemistry. This is the essence of what we refer to as creating a new self. So many people say they are in the midst of change, they are in the void, the unknown, and they feel stuck because they can't predict their future. And here's what I always tell them: the best way to predict your future is to create it. But here's the catch: you can't create it from the known, you have to create it from the unknown. This means you need to consciously choose the thoughts you want to fire and wire in your brain. If you wait for external circumstances to change before you start feeling good, feeling empowered, or feeling abundant, you are missing the point. It's an old model of reality based on cause and effect, waiting for something outside of you to change how you feel inside. Instead, you need to flip the script, change your internal state first, and then watch how your external reality starts to shift. Feeling differently inside is not just about having a positive attitude. It's about transforming your internal state to match the reality you want to create. When you're in a state of wholeness, you begin to heal. When you feel empowered, you open the doors to success. When you feel worthy, abundance will naturally follow. When you're in love with life, you will attract relationships that reflect that love. And when you're in awe of the moment, the universe responds with blessings beyond your imagination. One of the most powerful tools you have is gratitude. Often, people think they need to wait until they receive something before they feel grateful. But gratitude is more than just a reaction to receiving. It's the ultimate state of receivership. If you start to feel gratitude before you have actually received what you want, your body, as the unconscious mind, will begin to believe that the experience has already happened. This means you are already aligning with that future reality in the present moment. Gratitude is not just about saying thank you when something good happens. It's about embodying that state of gratitude before the manifestation occurs. It's an act of faith, an emotional signature that signals to the universe that you are ready to receive. By doing this, you are essentially programming your body and brain to expect and attract the future you want. Let's talk about the idea of living in the future. It might sound strange at first, but it's an important concept to understand. The question is, can you believe in a future that you can't see or touch yet? It can be challenging to grasp because it's not something you can physically experience right now. However, believing in this future is crucial for creating change in your life. When you think about a future possibility, a dream, goal, or vision, and focus on it regularly, something interesting happens in your brain. Your brain starts to rewire itself to help make that future a reality. Imagine your brain as a network of pathways. When you keep thinking about a specific future, you're helping to build new pathways in your brain that support that vision. This process is known as neuroplasticity. It's like creating a new road in your mind that leads to where you want to go. These future possibilities are not just dreams. They exist in what's called the quantum field. Think of the quantum field as a space where all possible futures exist. It's like a giant sea of potential, with countless possibilities floating around. Your job is to choose one of these potentials and make it your focus. It's like picking a particular path from a map and deciding to travel down it. But it's not enough just to think about this future. You need to emotionally embrace it. This means you should start feeling as if your desired future is already happening right now. Imagine how you would feel if you had already achieved your goal or lived out your dream. Feel those emotions deeply. If you're dreaming of a successful career, start feeling the excitement and pride as if you've already succeeded. If you're hoping for a happy relationship, feel the love and joy as if you're already experiencing it. When you start to feel these emotions as if they are happening in the present, something amazing happens. Your body starts to believe that this future is your current reality. It's like tricking your body into thinking that what you're dreaming about is actually happening right now. This shift in perception signals your genes and your entire system to start acting in ways that align with this new reality. Your body and mind begin to change, adapting to this new way of being. You see, there's an intelligence that governs everything in the universe. It's the same force that keeps your heart beating, your food digesting, and organizes countless functions in every cell of your body. It's also responsible for creating galaxies and blooming flowers. This intelligence is personal and universal. It's within you and all around you. Even though you can't see it, smell it, or touch it, it is the consciousness that is giving you life. There's a special kind of consciousness that's always aware of you and your state of being. Think of it as a kind of universal intelligence that's paying attention to you all the time. It's like a very attentive friend or a caring presence that is always there, noticing how you feel and what you're going through. This consciousness is not just passively observing. It's responsive to your emotions and your state of mind. When you focus on a vision of the future, something positive and hopeful, you are aligning yourself with this universal intelligence. It's like you're tuning into the same frequency or wavelength as this consciousness. When you have a clear and positive vision of where you want to go or who you want to become, this universal intelligence can help guide you in that direction. It's as if you're working together, and it's easier for you to move towards your goals because you're in harmony with this greater awareness. On the other hand, if you're stuck in past emotions and memories, it's like you're out of sync with this universal intelligence. When you're constantly dwelling on old hurts or disappointments, your brain will keep pulling up events from your past that reinforce those feelings. For example, if you've been hurt before and you're holding on to that pain, your mind might keep bringing up similar situations or memories that make you feel the same way. This is because your brain is trying to confirm and validate the emotions you're already feeling. This creates a cycle where you might feel frustrated, bitter, or stuck. When you're stuck in these negative emotions, it's hard to move forward or see new possibilities. The emotions you're feeling are connected to past experiences, and they keep you anchored there. It's like being in a loop where your past experiences and emotions keep repeating themselves, making it difficult for you to break free and experience something new. The universal intelligence is always there, but if you're focused on past hurts, it's harder for you to align with it. It's like trying to hear a radio station clearly while there's static in the background. The static represents your old emotions and memories, which can drown out the positive signals from the universal intelligence. But here's the thing, transforming yourself doesn't mean you have to revisit the painful events of your past. The focus should be on overcoming the emotions that linger from those events. It's about breaking free from the chemical residue of past experiences. When you sit with someone and notice their body reacting with sensations of frustration or irritation, you're seeing the physical manifestation of unresolved emotions. By becoming aware of these bodily sensations and allowing them to settle into the present moment, you begin to shift your state of being. You're essentially training your body to trust the present moment instead of clinging to past emotions. This process involves settling your body down, allowing it to release the energy of old emotions, and guiding it to focus on the present and future. This is how you break the addiction to those old emotional states. When you do this, the result is often a profound sense of joy and freedom. Let's talk about grief and what it really means. Grief is something that everyone experiences at some point in their lives. It's a natural biological process, and it's something that happens in your body and mind when you lose something or someone important to you. Think of it as a way your brain and body clean up and reorganize. Just like when you clean out an old closet to make room for new things, grief helps you clear out old emotions and memories so you can move forward. When you go through grief, you're not just feeling sad or upset. There's actually a lot happening in your brain. Your brain is like a network of pathways that are shaped by your experiences and emotions. When something significant happens, like the loss of a loved one or a major life change, your brain needs to adjust. Grieving helps prune or reshape these neural pathways, which means it helps your brain adapt to the new reality. This process can be tough and sometimes painful, but it's an important part of healing. It's important to let yourself fully experience grief. This means allowing yourself to feel the sadness, pain, or even anger that comes with it. If you try to ignore or push away these feelings, they don't go away. They just stay buried. Experiencing grief fully helps you process these emotions and begin to heal. It's like when you have a wound. If you don't clean it and take care of it, it can get infected. But if you treat it properly, it can heal and become strong again. At the same time, it's also essential to gain a deeper understanding of grief. Understanding what grief is and why it happens can help you deal with it better. When you understand that grief is a normal part of the healing process, it can make it easier to go through. It's not about forgetting or moving on immediately. It's about adapting to the changes and learning to live with them in a new way. Sometimes when you're grieving, you might notice that you often complain about your life. This usually happens when things are not going well and it feels like you're stuck. Complaints and negative feelings are signs that you might still be anchored to the past. When you're stuck in these emotions, it's like being tied down by invisible chains. These chains keep you from moving forward and enjoying the present moment. What you really want is to be free from these emotional chains. You want to live a life where you're not constantly held back by past hurts and disappointments. Breaking free from these chains means finding a way to heal and move on. It doesn't mean forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't matter. It means accepting what happened, processing your emotions, and learning to live your life in a healthier way. I've witnessed transformation across all cultures, ages, and backgrounds. The radiant change in a person's face and the lines equal to your experience, and nothing new there. But you can take a group of people and you can have them close their eyes to a brain scan on them before the experiment. 5 days later, do a brain scan after. And for 2 hours a day, they mentally rehearse playing those scales and chords at the end of 5 days. They grow the same amount of circuits in their brain as the people actually physically doing the exercise. So what's the relevance? Number one, when you're truly focused and you're truly paying attention, your brain does not know the difference between what's going on out there and what's going on in here. So the thought becomes the experience, and the brain looks like it's been playing the piano for the last 5 days. But they never lifted a finger now from a biological standpoint. Our brains are a record of the past. They're an artifact of everything we've learned and experienced to this moment when we prime the brain to change its circuitry before the experience. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past. It's now a map to the future. And so as we warm up those brain circuits, it's more easy for us to slip into a supernatural behavior. If you take those people and you set them from the piano and they've never played the piano before, but they've been mentally rehearsing for the last 5 days, they'll play those scales and chords. Like magic, they just learned how to do it just by changing their internal state. Take a group of men, you can have them close their eyes and for an hour, they mentally rehearse doing bicep curls over and over again, and they add an emotional component called harder, stronger, more intense, and they put themselves in that first-person internal mental image at the end of 2 weeks. They have a 13.5 increase in muscle strength, and they've never performed the activity. Not only is the brain changed to look like the experience has already occurred, now the body has changed by thought alone. You see, going from the old self to the new self is the neurological, is the biological, is the chemical, the hormonal, genetic death of the old self. People who say to me, I'm in the river of change, I'm in the unknown, I'm in this void, I can't predict my future. I always say the same thing to them. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Not from the known, but from the unknown. What thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? You can't wait for your wealth to feel abundance. You can't wait for your success to feel empowered. You can't wait for the mystical moment to feel awe. You can't wait for your new relationship to feel love or your new job to feel gratitude. It's the old model of reality, of cause and effect, waiting for something outside of you to change how you feel inside of you. When you feel differently inside of you, you pay attention to whoever or whatever caused that. And that event in and of itself is called a memory. To wait for our environment to give us relief. The quantum model of reality is about causing and effect, which means when you feel whole, you begin to heal. When you feel empowered, you're going to be successful. When you're worthy enough, you'll feel abundant. When you are in love with life and in love with yourself, you will find an equal, or it will find you. And when you are in awe of the moment, the mystical is going to bless you in a way that you never anticipated. And when you are in a state of gratitude, your job is on the way. It's causing an effect. And by the way, what is the emotional signature of gratitude? Don't you give thanks when you get something or you receive something? So then, what if you were to begin to give thanks or feel thanks before it manifested? Would your body, as the unconscious mind, believe it's in the future experience in the present moment? Because gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. And so we don't pray in our work to have our prayers answered. We get up as if our prayers are already answered. It is that state of mind and body that I know that requires a clear intention and an elevated emotion. And the clear intention is an act of the mind and the brain, and an elevated emotion is when you open your heart. When you combine those two elements, you just moved from living in your past to living in your future. So then, here's the question. Can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the experience has already occurred? Can you fall in love with a future potential that already exists in the quantum field? And how many potentials exist in the quantum field? Infinite potentials in the quantum field. Can you select a new potential in the quantum field and emotionally embrace that future reality before it's made manifest to such degree that your body, as the unconscious mind, is believing it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're signaling new genes and new ways? If there's physical evidence in your brain and body to look like the experience has already happened, there's evidence there physically, by thought alone. Relax, because the experience is going to find you. There's an intelligence that's giving you life right now. It's keeping your heart beating and digesting your food and organizing trillions of functions in every single cell of your body. It's organizing mutations in your DNA. There's some invisible force that's giving you life, but that same intelligence that's keeping your heart beating and digesting your food is the same intelligence that's creating supernovas in distant galaxies and causing flowers to bloom. It's both personal and universal. It's within you, and it's all around you, and you can't see it, and you can't smell it, and you can't taste it, and you can't feel it, but it is the giver of life. and it is a consciousness, and consciousness is awareness, and awareness is paying attention, and it is the observer observing you into life. And you know, when I tell our advanced students, either you're going to be defined by a vision of the future or the memories of the past. And then people say, why are you so bitter? Why are you so frustrated? Why are you suffering so much? And your brain, in that emotion, you're in the emotion, which means you're in the chemical residue of the past, is going to call up the event because you're emotionally connected to it. And you're going to say, I'm this way because of that past experience. So then imagine what I do with people. We have people that have been abused. We have people that have been traumatized, that have been assaulted. We have people that have had very, very difficult pasts. And have you ever heard me say to revisit the event? Have you ever heard me say that? Never do we need to revisit the event, because once you do, you open the box. But what we want to do is overcome the emotion, because that's just what's lasting from the event. So you sit a person down, and the moment you sit them down, what do you think the body is going to do? It's going to look for something to recreate that emotion, because that's the person's identity. Are you with me still? So if I inspire the person to sit there, and they're sitting there, and all of a sudden they're noticing that they're hot, and they're irritated, and their stomach is twisting, and all of a sudden it's a group of sensations, a group of feelings that they have called all along frustration. But the different sensations, the moment you name it, it becomes an emotion. But what it is just bodily sensations. It's energy that's stuck in the body. So the body is looking to go back to the past. It's believing it's in the past. Are you with me still? So if the person becomes aware that their body is doing that, and like training an animal, allow the body to feel that emotion and then settle it down into the present moment. When you settle it down into the present moment, the body starts to trust the present moment and move out of the past. And there's a release of energy. Then the body goes, wait a second, what's going to happen in the next moment? And it starts doing that. And it starts to try anticipate the future. And you settle the body back down into the present moment. And every time you do that, you're telling the body it's no longer the mind. That you're the mind, and your will is getting greater than the program. And all of a sudden, you start to lower the volume to that emotion. And when you begin to break the addiction to that emotion, the side effect of breaking that addiction is called joy. It's called freedom. All of a sudden, the body's saying, I don't want to be tormented anymore. Now, does that mean you shouldn't grieve over things that you lose? Grieving is a biological process. It's neural pruning. It's a death of circuitry. It's a death of emotions. It's the absence of void of something in your life. And that's important. In grief, sooner or later, you've got to come to a greater understanding about death, a greater understanding about loss, a greater understanding so that you can adapt to those conditions. Every time I sit with someone and they start complaining about their life, and I let them go for a few minutes, and then I go, oh, you know what I say to them? You only complain about your life when it's not working. And the emotion that you're feeling right now is keeping you connected to the past. You never do this when your life is working. And so I don't have a problem with moving through the stages of emotions. But I also know that what a person really wants more than anything else is to be free. People want to be free. And I have witnessed transformation. It was so alive in their mind that they began to live as if that future reality was happening in the present moment. So here's my question. Can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the event has already occurred? The latest research in neuroscience says you can change your brain from living in the past to living in the future. And can you fall in love with that vision to such a degree that you come out of your resting state and change guilt or suffering into inspiration and joy and gratitude? To such a degree that your body, as the unconscious mind, does not know the difference between that external event and what you're creating internally. so that your body believes it's living in that future, in the present moment, and you begin to signal new genes in new ways to change your body to look like the event has already occurred. The latest research in epigenetics says you can change your body by thought alone. Now reason this with me. If there's physical evidence in your brain and body to look like the event has already occurred, your brain and body are no longer living in the past, they're living in the future, and you will walk right into your vision, something new you wanted to experience. And the moment you started thinking about this experience, the moment you started contemplating this potential reality, you turned on a part of your brain called the frontal lobe, the crowning achievement of the human being. It's 40% of your entire brain. It is the creative center, and it has connections to all other parts of the brain. And the moment you said, what would it be like to be a leader? What would it be like to be successful? What would it be like to have this vision come true? The moment you asked that open-ended question, you turned on this part of the brain because the rest of the brain is just a bunch of automatic programs. And now the frontal lobe, the creative center, wakes up and it has connections to the entire brain. It's the CEO, it's the boss, it's the symphony leader of the brain. And the moment you get creative, the frontal lobe begins to select different networks of neurons that are stored in your brain from things you've learned or experienced. And as you begin to think a what-if question, it begins to select these different networks and begins to seamlessly piece them together and making your brain fire in new sequences and in new patterns and new combinations. And whenever you make your brain work differently, you're changing your mind, because mind is the brain in action. Mind is the brain at work. And the moment those neurons fire in tandem, you get a picture in your mind, a hologram, a vision. For those people who are passionate, that thought that they're thinking begins to create an elevated emotion. They become inspired, they feel enthusiastic, they become passionate. They started to open their hearts. And all of a sudden, they're combining a clear intention with an elevated emotion. And it's the combination of a clear intention and an elevated emotion in our research over and over again that proves then the person now is changing fundamentally, changing biologically, changing internally. And their brain and body are moving from living in the past into living in the future. When you do that, when you had that moment, you came out of your resting state, and then you started to write down all the things you were going to do to get to that vision, all the choices you were going to make, all of the experiences or goals you wanted to achieve, and all of the emotions and the joy you would feel. And when you were doing that, you were setting your sights towards that destiny. And then you did something really brilliant. You wrote down the choices you weren't going to make. You became aware of the behaviors you weren't going to demonstrate. You began to review certain experiences you wanted to stay away from, and then you looked at the emotions that would bring you to a lower level, and you began to separate the old self from the new self. And when you begin to do that and you're observing the old self, it means you're no longer the program. Now you're the consciousness observing the program, and that's when you begin to objectify your subjective self. And so the moment you stop making the same choices that you always make, get ready, because it's going to be uncomfortable. And that's the moment you're heading towards the new self. Do you think that you can change the circuits in your brain by thinking about it? So I did this experiment a little ways back. It took these people who never played the piano before, and they separated them into 4 categories. And they said, listen, we're going to scan your brains before you learn this exercise, and then we're going to scan your brain after. And all you have to do is show up for 2 hours a day and practice for 2 weeks, okay? And just follow the instructions. And we're going to hook your brain up to these sophisticated scans, and we're going to see what happens before and after. So they got with these people, and they said, okay, first group, here's the scales, and here's the chords. They're one-handed exercises. Practice them over and over again. Keep playing them. So they played every single day, 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. They scanned their brains before, they scanned their brains after. After 2 weeks, guess what happened? Whole new set of circuits lit up in their brain that never lit up before. That makes sense. You learn something new. Learning is making new connections. Repeating it over and over again is sustaining or maintaining those connections, and that's called memory. So they memorized what they were doing by physically practicing or personalizing what they learned. Make sense? Yes. Standard. Simple. It took the second group of people, and they said, listen, we want you to play 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. We're going to scan your brain before and after. You know what we're going to do? We're not going to tell you how to play anything. You just come and do whatever you want. Play whatever you want. So at the end of 2 weeks, guess what happened to them? Nothing. You know why? Because they couldn't remember what they had learned the day before. And they couldn't remember what they played the day before, and they had no structure. They got no instruction and no knowledge to be able to apply it to make some steady circuits. It took the third group of people, and they said, listen, don't even show up. Don't even create your day. Same thing, nothing happens. The last group of people, they said, listen, we want you to come 2 hours a day for 2 weeks. We're going to show you these one-handed exercises, but instead of you physically playing the piano, we want you to mentally rehearse over and over again those exercises. We know you're going to get tired, so we'll nudge you and we'll keep you awake. But you practice for 2 hours a day and you keep repeating those. The end of 2 weeks, they rescanned their brain, and guess what happened? Same area of the brain lit up as if they were actually playing the scales. Now you know what that means? They grew new circuits in their brain just by thinking about it, just by thinking, just by rehearsing. Now every time we learn something new, we make new circuits in the brain. If you learn anything new, learning is making a new connection in the brain. New neurological connection. Memory is maintaining or sustaining those connections, keeping them alive. And the only way that we maintain and sustain connections in the brain is by repetition. Repetition allows the neurons to develop a long-term relationship. So these people every single day made it the most important thing. They gave up their social engagements. They gave up television. They said, I'm going to rehearse. I'm going to mentally rehearse the greatest ideal of myself every single day. And as long as I keep doing it every day, what's going to happen to those circuits? They're going to light up and become the more sustainable circuits to act as a platform of who they will become in the future. During this process of rehearsal, while they were sitting down rehearsing who they were going to be, just like the piano players rehearsing over and over again, they had long moments where they lost track of time and space. In other words, they became so involved with what they were doing that when they opened their eyes or they lifted up their eye masks or when they turned the lights on in the room, it was 2 hours later, and it only seemed like 5 minutes. They were so involved with what they were doing that they lost the feedback of the body, they lost the feedback from the environment, and they lost track of time.